I don't have a vote in the Senate. So
I know you don't, but all
you
the
just said vote.
Republicans in the Senate.
So I think you just don't like the fact the way I vote.
Yeah, I don't. I don't like
in general
anything
in the
about
election
you.
in the
No,
booth.
no.
So, but we've established that. So, trying to answer your
But you
question,
haven't
I
established-
believe that they are qualified. I believe that.
How
they,
do you believe that?
I-
What do you base that on?
So, if anyone else would like to hear an answer,
I'd like to know your thoughts on them
So
not following
I'm going
protocol.
to answer her. I'm going to answer her question. So, I'm going to get to that. So, as I said yesterday on the radio on WHTC here, I don't care whether they were talking about lunch plans. They should not have put this on Signal to have a reporter. So the Senate is going to be going to do some sort of investigation. That's already been, there's a letter that has been sent on that already. They're wanting to gather that information. How did that happen? That's a very good question and a reasonable
Texas
question.
is
You
not-
don't know why. Lady.
Yeah, I do know.
So,
Texas doesn't know what he's doing.
there's a problem with if there's clearly a problem with over classification. I deal with this all the time because here's why. And this is what I mean by that. The stuff that we get shown into a SCIF, meaning a contained area where we can't have phones and we can't take notes on all these other things. I sit on Foreign Affairs. I get a weekly update in the SCIF, and I have to continually ask, is this classified? Well, sir, no, not necessarily classified, but it's sensitive. Okay, well, there's a legal definition between sensitive and between classified. And I would say what they put out was sensitive, but it wasn't classified. It was not classified. So what would you like?
Was a reporter.
There's a designation called CUI, confidential unclassified information. CUI information is not to be shared on public applications and
Yeah, they
networks.
come out and said that Russia can read those messages.
That's stuff
Whether
that's
it's sensitive or classified, it's
classified.
inappropriate.
You know
Where's the
very well
accountability?
that was a violation of our laws. Those people need to go to jail. I was a document administrator. I had TS documents when I was in the Army. I'm telling you right now, you ask any pilot, any officer, any of these people involved, any naval officer, they know very well what was done was wrong and it's illegal, really.
Anybody else would be in
An
jail.
active mission with targets and locations. You gotta be kidding me. And we know Israeli assets were also endangered by these people. Now, Trump, if he wants to put clowns in charge of his national security, that's really kind of his choice. But killing our soldiers, no, thank you. If you make a mistake like this, you gotta go.
Endangering our troops. What do you have to say about that?
I do have a question.
Sorry.
No words.
I'll come back to you. Yes, please.
I want to know, with them reducing all this stuff, why don't we just pay higher taxes? I'd be more than willing to pay more, and the rich should pay more. Sure.
That's my question.
Yeah, a lot.
There is, I would argue, we do not have a tax problem. We have a spending problem. We take in 5. We take in
For what?
The problem
To
is
do
our,
what?
our,
To
our
please
problem
what?
is spending $7 trillion. All right, and so our spending is not in line with what is going on. If you look at what the CBO. Actually, I have had the discussion of having something I called check the box. If you voluntarily want to add more tax money that would go towards reducing the deficit, reducing debt, I think that makes sense. I would also like to do that
Is Elon gonna check
people
the
with
box?
people with Social
about
Security,
Donald
like Warren Buffett and others
I don't know why
who
he's
are
eliminating
getting
that
Social
tax we're
Security.
paying on Social Security. Keep paying it. Why is he going to reduce
Okay,
that?
well, you're in the minority of people who receive Social Security that believe that that Social Security should be taxed. Because
Tax
what
the
I hear
billionaires.
all the time, what I
just
hear
want the
all the
billionaires
time
taxed.
is
Tax the billionaires.
what I
That's
hear
all.
all the time.
What I hear all the
is
time
that-
is tax the billionaires.
Yeah, tax the billionaires.
What I
That's
hear
it.
all the time is
back
that
to
people are
pre-Reagan.
concerned about their Social Security.
Bill, you were giving
And if we're gonna, okay, so
you were giving very long answers, but you lied to me. You can answer my in one question.
yes. So if we are going to shore up Social Security, we have to do something. Not to anybody who is currently in that system. There's no way. But giving a tax break to the people that are receiving Social Security, which I hear all the time, this was going to be my point, I hear all the time, is I earned this. This is money that I put in. So it's really almost like a double taxation. It is. And it's really kind of a triple taxation because you get 7% taken out, your employer gets 7% taken out, and then you're now going to get a tax on what you and your employer put in. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Temporarily.
We haven't answered this pay me a tax
I'd be willing to pay more.
That's actually another idea that's been talked about. I'm part of a bipartisan group that's called the Bipartisan Fiscal Forum. We chose BFF on purpose. Scott Peters from California and myself are the two co-chairs. It's equal number of Republicans and Democrats. We don't try to solve every problem, but we are focused in on debt and deficit. We're trying to figure out. How in the world we are going to tackle $36 trillion in debt and how taxing any group of people in the United States will not solve $36 trillion in debt.
Yeah, but it would be
It will
if
not.
you're not giving them a tax
And we
break.
also have to. There are
debt
under
ballooned
the
under Trump's
under the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Under the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, the middle income and lower middle income folks actually saw the largest decrease, and the upper part, absolutely. Look, make sure that we got your information. I'll send you the information. And the largest increase that happened is in those upper echelons.
The reason the funds are so low is because every president back took money on Social Security to pay off, to balance the budget.
So theoretically, Social Security isn't supposed to be touched.
Right.
But it's the federal government. I haven't taken anything. The federal government treats it like it's a checkbook rather than a savings account.
Yeah.
And that's a problem. And it's filled with all of these IOUs. And the Social Security Trust Fund trustees, not me, not BFF, not any Republican or Democrat, has said in 9 years if we don't address this, there's going to be a 21% cut to everyone receiving
why don't they
receiving
address
Social
it?
Security.
They
I'm trying to. You want to know who opposes it? AARP. They came in this last
Forget about
session.
Social
Just a moment. No, we're on Social Security, which is
Yeah.
one of the main things we hear about.
Yeah,
So
not
Social
about
Security,
taxes.
you are not the only person that gets to have a voice here. I'm sorry. So the problem.
Doesn't get answers. You're not the only one.
Actually, I know you're stumbling for a comeback, but I'm actually out here talking to you. So that it was Joe Manchin
like
and
you're doing a
Mitt
favor.
Romney, myself and Scott Peters were the four people. Those guys in the Senate, myself in the House, that we funded, or we wrote the bill, we introduced the bill, we had a hearing in the Budget Committee, and this was the furthest that we had ever seen anything get addressed since the great Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill agreement back in the 80s. All right, so unfortunately, AARP came out opposed to any concept. And Brendan Doyle, and I'm not saying anything behind his back because he said it into a microphone, he's the ranking Democrat from Pennsylvania, said, well, we don't have to worry about this yet. It's 9 years away. We'll figure it out later. Well, I want to figure it out now. So,
I'm a baby boomer. 74. I'm concerned about the environment and I'm concerned about the debt. I'm concerned about leaving that to our children, the next generation. Let's talk about the debt. Reagan gave tax cuts, the debt went up. Bush gave tax cuts, the debt went up. Trump gave tax cuts, it went up. It can be solved easily. Republicans have the presidency, the House, and the Senate. Raise the cap on Social Security. Don't tax people under $500,000 and make persons who make $500,000, $1 million, big corporations, they're flat tax 18%.
well, he was talking. What was it? Who was on the 18 flat tax?
Well,
Are you saying flat tax?
I'm saying corporations seem to get by with paying very little tax. I'm saying that billionaires get by with paying more tax. You're in control. You don't have to just roll back the tax cuts that Trump gave. You can, and you'll get help from Democrats, modify the tax.
The vast majority of taxes that come in are already from the upper level. If you look at the amount, okay, you look at the amount,
not by percentage.
and you look at the amount because the percentage of millionaires, the percentage of people that actually make $1 million a year is so low compared to where
1/10 of
everybody else
1%
is. So you have to go in and say, okay, how are we making sure that middle and lower middle income folks who are gotten hammered with inflation, energy costs, grocery costs, all those things, how do we drive that in? Again, if we don't extend the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act provisions from 2017, they will see the largest historic increase in taxes, largest historic tax increase in modern era, which is a horrible mistake. I would love to talk environment though, too. But go ahead.
With due respect, the top 1%, 5%, and I don't know if I have my statistics right, control a large amount of our economic growth.
1/10 of 1%.
Well, they own a lot. They own a lot of the.
They tax them more.
They can pay more.
They pay more.
So most of the time, again, when you talk about that upper middle income now, a
No,
lot
we're
of
talking
those,
about the billionaires.
a lot of
We're not
those,
talking about
a lot of those are that small business folk, right?
We're not talking about
My dad was
S
that
corporations, LLC,
My dad
and
was
going
that
on.
person.
If you honestly look at the numbers again, they who are the drivers of our economy, they're the ones that saw tax relief on down to some of the lowest percentages. The upper levels had their tax bills increased. They paid more this last
pays
time.
no taxes.
Trickle-down economics was supposed to raise revenue across the board and bring in more taxes.
And it did.
It did not.
I
It did not.
I disagree.
It did not.
And the
So
debt balloon's
how about we have discussion on environment? You want to talk that? Yeah.
moving topic. Okay.
I just got to completely overhear that we weren't hitting enough topics. So he brought up two things. You brought up environment. So who here knows that I'm the co-chair of the Great Lakes Task Force? Okay.
I applaud
We
you.
got
I
a
applaud
few,
you for
right?
keeping the carp out of Lake Michigan.
Oh, it's more than that. I mean,
It is
I'm on the
much more than
PFAS
that. It's
task
much
force.
more
We
than
got a number of those things.
If that pipeline in the streets works, and it is well
the
timed,
Why
and
is
its
that?
life
Yep.
is over.
State
Its
of
life
Michigan
is
has been
over.
dealing with it.
We need you
President
to help.
Trump is
We need
touting-
you to
I've had
propose
those
as
President
well.
Trump is touting
All those
drill,
other
baby,
things-
drill.
Yeah.
President Trump is taking away some of the incentives for electric cars. It doesn't make sense.
Well, those incentives are going away because consumers don't want them the way at the level that the federal government knows they would have to be bought to replace the internal combustion engine. And that's why you've got companies like Toyota and others that are going more to a hybrid because it makes sense. It makes far more sense than just having an EV world, which isn't possible because we don't even have
Why
the rare
did we
earths
pull
that
out of
we're
the
getting.
Paris
Because it's a bad deal.
What about NATO?
We're not going anywhere on NATO, and we're continuing to be on NATO. But I will tell you this: I just look. I was part of the Europe subcommittee on foreign affairs. I have had innumerable conversations with, and still do, with foreigners and people in NATO, out of NATO, people in Africa, people in Southeast Asia, Central Asia, and specifically about NATO. NATO would not have gotten off their collective rears and actually hit their treaty obligation of 2% if it wasn't for President Trump and people like Pete Hoekstra in the Netherlands at the time hammering every single country, saying you've got to get there. Canada is one of the worst, and I have conversations with Canadian parliamentarians all the time about it. They acknowledge it, and they said, "Yeah, we're sorry, it's just not going to happen." And it's like, okay, well then that's not acceptable. Why are we carrying the freight on a place like on an institution like NATO when the people who are gaining the most out of it aren't doing what their treaty obligation
We
is?
set ourselves up as a world power, and if that is who we want to be and continue to be, then it is imperative that we continue to to fund these programs that we have
At the
done
level,
for
at the level
many,
you
many
want,
years.
at the level you think. So you're okay with the disparity of others who have signed a treaty not fulfilling their treaty obligations?
If it is based on GDP or if it is based on
It's based on their
on those
total
things,
overall
then-
government
then it-
spending.
then
So-
that
so
is-
Bill,
then
Bill.
fi- then that is what it is.
Then,
Bill,
but
we
tell me
have
just a
no-
second.
if
But
we
tell
have
me why the
more money than
Lithuanians, the
every
Estonians,
country
the
in the
Latvians, the
world,
Poles, the
we should
Romanians,
absolutely pay more.
everybody,
We want to police
the
them at every
Finns,
turn,
the
so why
Finns
should
are
we
at
not?
3%. So there are countries that are above it. Western Europe is below it.
Bill,
Below.
Bill, you again.
I know.
Bill, you know me.